Step out of the car, now. The officer's voice was sharp, laced with suspicion, as flashing red and blue lights painted the night. A black man gripped the steering wheel, heart pounding, knowing too well how quickly routine stops can spiral into something far worse. He hadn't broken any laws. He hadn't even been speeding. Yet the officers closed in, hands resting on their holsters, treating him like a criminal before a word was spoken. But what they didn't know was this: he wasn't just any driver, and soon their mistake would cost them everything. By day, Marcus was known as a quiet professional, a man who carried himself with calm authority, yet treated everyone with dignity. To his neighbors, he was the friendly face who always waved when jogging in the mornings. To his co-workers, he was sharp, disciplined, and respected. But what most people didn't know was the true weight of the badge he carried and the power that came with it. That evening, Marcus wasn't in uniform. He wasn't behind a desk reviewing reports or walking through precinct halls. He was just another man driving home after a long shift, wearing jeans and a simple jacket, thinking about dinner and whether his daughter had finished her homework. The city streets were quiet, the hum of his engine steady, until blinding headlights flared in his rearview mirror. At first he thought nothing of it, maybe a car in a hurry, but then came the sudden siren, the flashing lights, and the sharp order through a loudspeaker, "Pull over." Marcus's hands tightened around the wheel. He knew this neighborhood. He knew how quickly a routine stop here could turn into something far darker, especially for someone who looked like him. And tonight, dressed in plain clothes, there was nothing visible to separate him from every other black man who had been stopped for reasons that never quite made sense. What Marcus didn't realize, though, was just how far these officers were about to push him before learning the truth they never expected. The officer's flashlight cut through the darkness, blinding Marcus as he rolled down his window. "License and registration," the cop barked, his tone cold, not the kind you use for a routine stop. Marcus stayed calm, moving slowly, every motion deliberate. He'd given this same advice countless times during community meetings: don't make sudden movements, keep your hands visible, stay respectful. Now he was living his own words. "May I ask what I was stopped for, officer?" he said evenly, sliding his license forward. The cop didn't answer. Instead, another officer approached on the passenger side, hand resting on his holster, eyes scanning the inside of Marcus's car as if searching for trouble. "Step out of the vehicle," the first officer ordered. Marcus hesitated. He knew his rights. He hadn't broken any laws, but he also knew how defiance, no matter how justified, could be twisted into resistance. So, with a deep breath, he opened the door and stepped into the cool night air. That's when the questioning began. Where was he headed? Why was he driving in this neighborhood? Did the car really belong to him? Each question carried the same unspoken accusation: you don't belong here. Marcus answered politely, steadily, refusing to give them an excuse, but the officers weren't satisfied. One smirked as he circled the car, running his hand along the hood. "Nice ride," he muttered, "a little too nice for someone like you." The words stung, but Marcus bit his tongue. He'd heard them before, maybe not phrased the same way, but carrying the same venom. Then came the moment that shifted everything. "Pop the trunk," the second officer demanded. Marcus frowned. "Is there a reason, officer? Do you have probable cause?" That's when the smirk disappeared, replaced with a hard glare. "Are you refusing a lawful order?" Marcus felt his pulse quicken. He could feel the tension thickening, the air charged like a storm about to break. Around them, a few porch lights flicked on as neighbors peeked out, curious about the flashing lights on their street. The officers noticed too, and maybe that's why one of them decided to push harder. "Turn around, hands on the car." For a moment, Marcus froze. He hadn't done anything wrong. Yet here he was, treated like a suspect, humiliated in front of strangers. The urge to reveal who he really was, to shut this entire scene down with one flash of his badge, burned inside him. But he held back. Not yet, not until he was certain. Because in that moment, Marcus wasn't thinking about pride. He was thinking about survival, about what might happen if one wrong word or one wrong move gave these officers an excuse. So slowly, he turned, placing his hands on the cool metal of his own car. And as the officer stepped closer, reaching for his cuffs, Marcus knew this was no longer just a traffic stop. This was a line being crossed. What none of them realized was that they weren't just dealing with a man behind the wheel. They were about to discover the kind of mistake that could change everything. The cold metal of the cuffs snapped around Marcus's wrists. The officer shoved him against the hood of his own car, the weight of humiliation pressing heavier than the steel. "Got anything we should know about?" the cop sneered, patting him down with unnecessary force. Marcus clenched his jaw. He had faced danger before. He had stared down criminals, liars, and those who thought themselves untouchable. But this was different. This was the system he had sworn to uphold, now turning on him because of nothing more than the color of his skin. "I told you, I'm just driving home," he said, voice steady but edged with fire. The officer laughed. "Yeah, sure, you people always got a story." Those words cut deep. They weren't just words. They were a reminder of every headline, every protest, every name chanted in the streets. And now, Marcus was one wrong breath away from being another story. Neighbors gathered at a distance, phones out, recording. The officers grew visibly tense, but instead of easing up, they doubled down. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way," one threatened, tugging harder on Marcus's arm. And that's when Marcus decided enough was enough. He lifted his head, eyes burning into theirs. "You've made a mistake," he said, his voice carrying an authority they didn't yet understand. The officers scoffed. "Oh yeah, and who exactly do you think you are?" Marcus took a slow breath, the crowd watching, the cameras rolling, and spoke with a calm that cut sharper than any shout. "I'm the head of internal affairs." For a moment, silence blanketed the street. The officers froze, their grip loosening, their faces draining of color as the weight of their mistake hit them like a hammer. The silence after Marcus's words was deafening. The same officers who moments before had barked orders and tightened cuffs now stumbled over themselves to undo their mistake. Apologies spilled out, thin, shaky, and empty. Their hands trembled as they unlocked the restraints, as though removing steel could erase what had just happened. Marcus didn't shout. He didn't need to. His presence, his authority, was louder than any raised voice. He simply stared at them, letting the weight of their actions sink in. Around them, the cameras were still rolling, neighbors whispering. They had no idea who they were messing with. But Marcus knew the truth. It shouldn't take a badge, a title, or a position of power to be treated with dignity. Tonight, he was spared the unthinkable, not because of mercy, but because of status. And that realization cut deeper than the humiliation ever could. Driving away later, wrists still sore, Marcus thought of every man and woman who didn't have his shield to protect them. Every father, son, or daughter who faced the same flashing lights but never got to walk away. He thought of the families left behind, forced to grieve because of an officer's prejudice, arrogance, or fear. The mistake those officers made wasn't just stopping the wrong man. Their true mistake was forgetting the humanity in front of them. And maybe that's the question we all have to face. How many more lives will it take before the system sees us as equals, before black men and women can drive home at night without wondering if it might be their last trip?